Hello there, everybody. It's me, Garrett Kidney, the co-host of You've Got to Be Kidding Me on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
And I am Liam Jones, my full name, and I'm also a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network as a co-host for You've Got to Be Kidding Me.
We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. We cover all the drama, all the matches, all the Vince Russo nonsense you could ever want in your life.
Have you heard of TNA? I bet you have, but would it be funnier if two people made jokes over it the whole time? Probably.
So if that sounds like fun to you, check it out on this very Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, and Liam will do bits and whatnot.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. Hear everyone singing. Ni看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for March 5th, 2024. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You could follow us on Twitter, X, at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You can set up a one-time or recurring donation by hitting the little red box that says sponsor of this podcast. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside, as always, Case Lowe. In case it feels like now we are now fully into Dragongate 2024. The 2 nights in Osaka, Edion 2 are behind us. I know that it's, of course, mid-March. Why would I be saying it's the start of Dragongate's year? But it does kind of feel like that now this is the time where everything's kicking up, and especially coming out of Osaka, everything is like all engines go right now in this company.
Yeah, no, we're definitely in a sweet spot here. I thought Dragon Gate, between the Mochizuki anniversary stuff and just the added addition of Gate of Bayside, I thought they hit the ground running pretty well this year, but then February felt like February in Dragon Gate, which is not the most adventurous or prosperous time for the promotion. Last year, they had Rey de Parejas leading up to the March Korakuen show. This year, it begins at the March Korakuen show. So yeah, no, things are not slowing down here. You know, if you're somebody that maybe checked out Bayside, but then nothing in February grabbed your attention, you have Champion Gate, you have Nostalgia Gate. I think both are worth the watch. And then you're coming up on what should be, if it was anything like last year, what should be a month of super high quality wrestling on every single show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something where I feel like in a lot of ways it is the fact that just because January, now we have Gate of Bayside, it's like a good end of the month kind of step into things, but there's still, but just facing facts, Dragon Gate kind of takes the back seat in Japanese wrestling during that time period. I like always how this weekend kind of kicks us into this gear, and I'm going to be interested when we are looking back at this spring in April about how it feels like when you switch around these timings of this Rey de Parejas, because it does feel like something going into last weekend that even though there was Gate of Nostalgia, even though there was Champion Gate, everything kind of was still keeping the plate spinning for Rey de Parejas, and it really does feel like tomorrow, by the time most of y'all will be hearing this, we will be like right into the thick of it. And maybe if it's like more of a kind of a quiet, typical Dragon Gate February, I feel like it was kind of quietly moving us towards this. That like I feel like now like everything, and especially coming out of this weekend, all focus is towards the tag team tournament and who's going to be the team that will face off against Kaito Kiyomiya and Alejandro.
Yeah, and you know, I think under any circumstances, just given how good last year's tournament was, I would have been pretty psyched for Rey de Parejas, and I can't wait. Again, by the time this is out, the opening night in Cork and Hall will have already happened. I can't wait to give wild predictions on this show that turn out to be incredibly inaccurate. But, I think no matter what, I would have been pretty psyched because of the tag tournament. But we're coming off of a weekend in Osaka where I get the impression I'm a little more into it than you were, because I think you are just the ultimate Debbie Downer on this Gate of Nostalgia show. You were going into it. I think you are going out of it. But no matter how you chop it up, whether you're looking at it from an in-ring perspective or you're looking at it from the box office, a massive weekend for Dragon Gate and a success no matter how you look at it. I don't know, Mike, you know this, but like, for some reason, Open the Voice Gate, very big in the Osaka market. Like I talked to multiple people that were at these shows that were just raving about the atmosphere on night one and then how good night two was. And I'm thinking, man, it's weird. Like, sometimes I can't find somebody to talk to that was in person at a Corkin show, but when they come to Osaka, man, my DMs all of a sudden light up with live reports, which I greatly appreciate. So
I need to get into our numbers and make sure that we are like the kings of Dotonbori, basically. Like,
you know what I mean? We should be doing territory. Like local reads for convenience stores in Osaka. We have that level of pull in that market for whatever reason, which is very funny to me. But again, I would have been psyched anyways because I loved Rey de Parejas last year, but we're coming off of two shows that I just thought were a ton of fun, and I am jacked up about what's to come. So yeah, very good time to be a Dragon Gate fan right now. I'm very much into this.
Well, let's get into this weekend in Osaka. I had the written review of Gate of Nostalgia. My thoughts are up there. My kind of coming to peace with this with this show and with this concept. I have that up there. But I want to get your thoughts on this because I know I am the outlier on this kind of going from the traditional 2 nights in Osaka now to, at least in this 25th anniversary year, we had a complete nostalgia show, the Gate of Nostalgia, and then a full focus Champion Gate show. I kind of have come to terms as like, hey, we got a return of Mad Blankey. Why am I really complaining at this point? That's kind of my big conclusion I kind of came to from this Gate of Nostalgia showcase. What were your big thoughts about it?
I thought it was a super fun show. I liked the presentation of all of the units but one. And I think the unit that lacked a really strong presentation, I think they were almost self-aware in the way they were doing it, but it was a little disappointed to see just as a fan of the original incarnation of a unit being Diehards. But I don't know how you can come out of that show in the main event in particular, which I thought was not only a great match, something I would notebook on, also, I thought just had one of the most memorable moments of Dragon Gate for the entire year. I will remember Kai yelling bye-bye and the crowd erupting in boos like they were in the Sportatorium. I mean, just a brutal downpouring of boos to Kai before they restarted the main event. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very easy show to watch. Everything on some level delivered or was painless, which I'll take those two anytime I can get them. So really, really fun stuff here. And also, the big picture is that I don't think it moved the company backwards at all. Zebrats gets the win in the main event. That was the only result that really mattered. I don't know how you could look at this full building, and that was emphasized to me by a few different people that were there. Because again, I talked to multiple people here. They were like, it was packed, it was full, and it was loud. The comment that somebody made to me was, you could tell there were lapsed fans in the building, people that hadn't been to a show post-COVID because of the noise they were making. And one of the things that I've been most wrong about over the last few years is, Mike, remember like a year and a half ago when shows came back to normal and there were no attendance restrictions and there were no clap crowds anymore? I made a point of going like, we're treating Japanese people like they're not human. Like they know how to clap, they know how to cheer. And then as it turns out, within Dragon Gate specifically, they had turned over so many fans that by the time cheering had come back, so many of the fans in Cork and in Kobe and Osaka just hadn't been to a wrestling show where there was cheering. And so it took them time, and it's still taking them time. And Gate of Nostalgia, I guess we can start there. To me, it sounded like an old Dragon Gate show.
Yeah, and it was something where, at least for me, when you talk about like how packed it was, and especially a building like Edion Arena Osaka #2, maybe it is that I watched the Glade show almost like leading up to this weekend. I've been watching a lot of stuff that's been happening in Edion too, but this is the first show I feel like in years where you take the ring and you put it right in the middle of it, right between the two basketball nets. And you especially, I feel like that you would notice during like the Mad Blankey entrance and the big moments in Champion Gate the next night, it felt like, okay, this is how this building is supposed to feel. And it hasn't felt this way for 5 years. Like in a lot of ways, this felt like almost a second or third COVID return for this building.
Yeah, because when they claim 500 or 600 in the building, it's like, all right, that's a good little house. It's more than other promotions are doing, but you felt like this was a level up from that, and that they really filled this place, and the crowd response for the entire show I thought was interesting. But for the main event in particular, they were so into Mad Blankey, and it was so cool to see. And then I thought Z-Brats, I thought they did a perfect job of presenting Z-Brats as the new, I don't know if cool is the right word, but let's say the new cool thing. They come out on top in the end. They're effective in the way that they go out on top. It was just, there will be hundreds, or not, maybe not hundreds, but there'll be dozens of better Dragon Gate matches this year. But God, I found the main event to be so satisfying from start to finish.
Right. So let's talk about this main event. As Case mentioned, it was a restarted match, a 5-on-4 handicap match after everything that happened in this week. I think something should be stated for as many card changes, especially this night in Champion Gate ended up having. It did feel like that it was a situation in where it was like big weekend. Okay, some stuff's happening and we have some changes here, but our back's against the wall. And I felt like that's how the weekend really came off to me. And I feel like no better example of that than this Gate of Nostalgia main event, Mad Blankey versus Z-Brats. It was Yamato, Naruki Doi, KZ, Problem Dragon, and Punch Tominaga for Mad Blankey. Z-Brats, Shun Skywalker, Kai, Ishin, Johnny Valletta. They did not have any replacements or turns since the injury of Yoshiki Kato blowing out his knee. The two decisions were a double count out. Basically, the match never got into the ring to start. Mad Blankey took it to them pretty much from the start, and then eventually they restarted the match after the big bye-bye. It really did kind of feel like a sportatorium kind of crowd response for that. And we had the finishing stretch of Mad Blankey versus Z-Brats. It was Punch Tominaga finally giving out against Johnny Valletta with the King Kong knee drop in 10 minutes and 50 seconds. And it is something where I felt like in a way, you had this teleportation of Mad Blankey, with the exception of Yamato's borrowed gear.
Oh my God. Oh, what the hell was that?
It is. I just wonder how someone buys someone's gear and then it just falls apart like that. Like, I feel like there has to be like an active thing that happened to that pair of tights.
It looked like the tights were dipped in acid.
Right. Yeah. It was basically completely peeling from it. It was the classic yellow Yamato Mad Blankey tights. If you think about Yamato and Mad Blankey, those were the tights. Like, he found
it was only the one. Yeah.
Right. But I think it was something where you were able to, and I write about this in my review case in this match, Mad Blankey was already so beloved back in its modern incarnation. So having this reunion here, and maybe it's a bit of us doing the rewind and rewatch, and we just got through Crazy Max and M2K when we're talking about Mochizuki contra Mochizuki and how that shifted Crazy Max as a babyface tweener unit and kind of response to M2K appearing. I feel like it was something where, in retrospect, so smart using like, okay, Mad Blankey, they're going to get cheered anyways. So, but they are the heel unit doing this, and everyone getting into every single heel spot that Mad Blankey pulled off. I felt like that was a feeling that I felt like that kind of took me back from, I should have saw that coming.
It was great. I mean, I thought they nailed the presentation of this, with everyone that was in the match to begin with. And then the inclusion, and I'd like to think we willed this into existence, Zombie Fuji makes an appearance.
I knew my called shot. Like, I knew that that if we put it out there, case it could happen. And he had, it was like perfect. It was perfect Uncle Don Fuji, because he had the Hawaiian shirt on and everything.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So, Tominaga went for a low blow on Ishin. Ishin blocked it. He hit sort of a neck breaker deal on Tominaga, which knocked over the referee. And then that's when Fuji came out. Fuji goes to clear house, but instead he lariats Problem Dragon and Punch, and then removes himself from the match, just walks to the back, hands up, and from there you go into the finishing stretch. And, there's a great moment where they hit the box attack and the salt on Ishin. They hit the Doi 5, the Bakatare, and the Galleria on Ishin. Referee still down, and that is when Gianni Valletta comes into the ring. He sneaks up behind Yamato. Yamato does, again, more classic American pro wrestling, sort of jaw on the floor. Oh shit, he's right behind me, isn't he? And then you have Valletta clear house of Yamadoi, and then it ends up with him and Punch in the ring, and he hits the big knee drop for the win. It was, it's funny you mentioned the rewind and rewatch we just did with M2K and Mochizuki contra Mochizuki. This was a Toryumon style of match, even though it featured Mad Blankey and Z-Brats. It was total plunder. It felt American inspired, but it felt incredibly satisfying. The initial double countout didn't feel cheap. The finish, even though the heels went over, felt justified. It was marvelous all the way through. I really enjoyed it. I went 4 stars on this.
Yeah, I was 3 3/4, so I was almost right there with you on it. It just was something where Punch Tominaga ends up being the MVP of the night, not really being in a huge role before when they laid out the card, but stepping into the opener for Strong Machine J and then becoming the crux of another match. This was not October of last year, case, but it was something where it felt like a Punch Tominaga match, that in the way that if you had a Punch Tominaga match like in 1999 or the year 2000, how would it work? It would be like this main event.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I have very little critiques on what they could do differently if they were ever going to run this show again. It sounds like maybe from commentary they're going to do some other nostalgia show this year. That's the vibe that I got. But man, I got to say, I thought the Mad Blankey presentation here was perfect. And you think about the history of heel units. Can't do Crazy Max. Can't do Blood Generation. You did Real Hazard on the show, but if you're going to have Yamato involved, the impact is either with Mad Blankey or Berserk. And I don't know if I don't think people would care about Yamadoi in Berserk colors. I think Mad Blankey is where it's at, and I thought they did it perfectly. So I would not be opposed to another Mad Blankey appearance this year.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is just as a point of suggestion. So Yamato, it takes you forever to get your gear done. The second you saw how bad your Mad Blankey gear was, you should have gone to wherever Doi goes and gotten an order in. Just make new tights. You can't do this again.
Everybody in this company constantly updates their gear with the exception of Yamato.
I know, it's wild.
I don't get it now, and I don't know if you watched the YouTube upload from today, but Yamato has new tights, and they're like red and black, and they're cool because the pattern of it's different than what he wore in Berserk. But I'm sure he'll get a unit where the keynote colors are blue and gold, and then he'll have these stupid red tights for like 3 months before he gets new ones.
Yeah, one would think that your company ace would get with the program a little bit, but
it's odd. He's the only guy that struggles with that.
Yeah, and especially considering like the rookies who, they break out new gear like at the right moments all the time. Nope, Yamato has a pair of tights that there was a legitimate moment that I was like, what happens if these tights fall apart in the middle of the...
Well, then Dragongate gets more popular than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, we go.
Then fans storm the ring.
Yep, there we go. Second golden age right there, just because Yamato's ass ends up hanging out. Semi-main event on the Gate of Nostalgia. The original Jimmy's pairing of Jimmy Susumu and Jimmy Kagetora defeat Big Hug. They work it in a way that you got one last Dreamgate preview for the next night's Susumu Mochizuki versus Luis Monte match. It's a Jumbo no Kachi on Hyo to get the finish here. And you got a Jimmy train here. You got everyone to come out here and kind of do the act here. It's something, at least with Jimmy's, I don't know if they're going to get to a point where they don't have any cachet with
I think they'll have Jimmy cachet for forever.
forever. It feels like that as long as like all 5 guys are there, like for the remaining guys' retirements, I fully expect that there will be like a Jimmy train happening each time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think that'll ever die. I mean, I again, Susumu, knock on wood, I think he's got another 30 years left in him. And as long as Genki and Saito can walk, I think we're getting Jimmy's trains until the end of time.
I have a different plan for Jimmy or for Maraha Sapa coming out of this show. There was something else that tickled me there, but original Jimmy's getting the win over Hyo. I know there was a little bit of talk about Hyo dropping these falls in a lot of ways over the weekend.
I mean, look, this is one of those things that I didn't think through when I talked about it last week, which, by the way, I survived the tornado. Thank you, everybody who checked in on me. You know, I would have assumed just from the way the match was laid out that Kagetora was the one taking the fall, but it's as dumb as this sounds, it's harder to get into a Jimmy's train after a Jimmy's loss. And I quite honestly, I think on a nostalgia show, the concept of doing the Jimmy's train has more value than being the Open the Brave Gate champion. And also, on a show-in, show-out basis, there's still nobody more over than Hyo, so I really don't mind the fact that he's taking losses here.
And I think it's something where he took so many losses over the years. You kind of have a coding built up, like a resilient coding.
Yeah. No, that's a great point because
it's the same thing with KZ too. I feel like.
because if we're in Rey de Parejas and it's Ishin and Shun starts taking all of the pinfalls, we're gonna go, wait a minute, that's weird. That might hurt Shun in the short term or the long term. But no, Hyo, you're right. He has a lost coat built up that really doesn't affect him.
And it's something where, especially in Rey de Parejas, there should only be one time that Monte takes a fall, and that is to be, or really, he should not take a fall. Like, really, it's going to have to be Hyo in this tournament taking the falls here.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But the match itself, I mean, I feel like whenever we see Susumu and Kagetora, they're able to kind of get back into the rhythms that they had before with that, and with Big Hug where they are. It was kind of a nice little thing. I enjoyed the tag team matches on the show. I don't know if this was kind of being out to lunch here on this. I felt like that even though it's 3 3/4 on the main event, probably the things on the show that I thoroughly enjoyed the most were the tag team.
I think that's crazy, but I also really like this match.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. What'd you have for it?
I had 3.5.
All right, that's fair. The match before that, D-Courage, Madoka Kakuga, and Ryoya Tanaka versus Maximum, the only pairing you could possibly have of Maxim, I feel like nowadays. It was Big Ben and Big R, Shimizu, and Benkei. Big R brought back the Mohawk as he should. It went to a no contest in about 10 minutes after Ishin came out right towards the finish. It was Tanaka going for his dive, and then Ishin knocked him off the turnbuckle, throwing out the match. Boo.
Yeah, that sucked because this match was getting really good when the DQ happened.
Yeah, it was just really dissatisfying there. Like, I get it for like this was the one bit of show-to-show continuity that they had, but man, it was something where like I wanted this match to go to a conclusion. Yeah, it was something where like, do I feel like that Tanaka should pin Big R Shimizu? Probably not, but I bought into it at that moment, and I was mad that he got yanked from me.
Benkei did his missile dropkick in this match, and I don't feel like he's done that in quite a while. I forgot how much I like that.
I think he quit because it looks like it sucks to do.
Oh my god, yes, absolutely. I mean, the way Ben does it, he drops like lead. It's not graceful, but God, it looks like a shoot missile dropkick.
Yeah, it sucks. It looks like it sucks, but yeah, it was something where you also notice Ben was trying not to say "chicky chicky" the entire match.
No, I have such an affinity for Maximum, and I enjoyed that. I mean, Jay and Ho-Ho went over it on commentary because you've got Jason still in the company, but they went with Jason and Vibes here. You've got Doi still in the company, but then it's Kotoka and it's Yoshino, and they're not walking through the door anytime soon.
Yeah, Ishida certainly not walking through the door. Oh my god,
that's right. Kaito Ishida was in there as well.
And then it's like
Maximum
Dragon Kid.
Was good. Yeah, because it was there was the whole thing where Ishida and Dragon Kid wanted in, and they had to like earn Doi's respect to get it. That was good. Good unit. Really, at a time when it was the only good thing in Dragon Gate. I was writing about Antios earlier today for something that I'm working on for voicesofwrestling.com. What a putrid unit. Just 2018. It was 2018 sucked in like a way that is so hard to explain, but you would just look at every card and go, well, what's Maximum doing? Okay, all right, great. And then I will just suffer through the rest of it.
Yeah, it's like I know that as soon as Pac came back, and one thing that I did, Case, over this last weekend, it was one of the first weekends of good weather that we've had, and you know what that means for me. We were building planterns. I dug up one of my flower beds trying to get all the acorns out, and I was listening to Alan Forel doing his 30 4L 30 about Pac, and it was something where I just completely was taken back by about, oh yeah, how great like Pac was in the company, and how Pac in 2018 kind of was the thing. It was like, okay, things are going to get okay, because before that, all you really had was Maximum that year.
Well, okay, brief historical side note. I was thinking about this because so much of Dragon Gate's history is defined by when people left the company.
Right.
But other than Pac, and I guess Naoki Tanizaki to some degree, who are the people that have actually made returns that went away and then came back? Because I think it's just Pac, really.
Well, you have the people like that left at certain points in Toryumon or were not brought over. Like Kagatora coming in 2009 was a big deal.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
That felt like a big deal then. He's not around anymore, but Brother Yashi showing back up was a big deal.
That's true. Yashi showing back up was a huge deal. That was because he was the first. Well, I mean, Sugawara is back, but okay, so that answers my question. So Sugawara, and then, well, okay, so Kage, Sugawara.
It was something where Sugawara out of that group was the one that was going to be brought back sooner than the other four.
Yeah, because it felt, he wasn't like a voodoo murderers guy, so it felt different.
And everyone else, especially for like, he ended up landing in 0-1 and doing his own thing away from the other four very quickly in the greater scheme of things. And there was enough time that Yashi and Kondo and some of the others really made the situation worse for themselves. Probably no one else worse than Yashi.
Yeah, no, the Yashi thing was a really big deal. I mean, I was reviewing Dragongate for Voices by that point, so that was like February. It was after the Dia Hearts disband match, I think.
Right, yeah.
And then, yeah, he does the comeback,
the Monster Express thing, like my original amigo.
Turns heel, yep.
Yeah, wild.
Ugh, God, no, I'm all love and respect to Brother Yashi. I've heard he's a delightful man when you run into him, but I'm so glad he's not in Dragongate anymore.
Yeah, he can go do his micro indie in Kyoto and Kobe. Like,
yeah, and he seems very happy doing that.
Yeah, and it seems like everyone else, it works out just as fine as them. Something else that worked just as fine before we saw it again. Dia Hearts defeats Real Hazard. BB Hulk penned Ryo Saito after an errant Ginky miss attack and then a double first flash. Well, we had to have one of these groups not be winners and the return. And the one that really felt like everyone left over was thrown into it was the one that felt like, why did you bring back Dia Hearts if you're treating it
Yeah, and I was a big Dia Hearts guy, so I was disappointed to see that, but they did not stick the landing on their reunion, did they?
I mean, it was a situation where Hulk, no one had original gear from then. For a team case that was brought about liking long pants, what did Masaki Mochizuki not wear in this match?
Long pants!
And that's not to mention the fact that Dragon Kid did not have his gear. He had like a hoodie. And then BB Hulk got his new ring skirt made for Dia Hearts. And partway through, both of the Dia Hearts logos fell off, and they are Pause Heart ring skirts.
Yes, which led to Jay speculating that, hey, maybe this is not the only reunion show we get this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, you do what, a Mori comeback match, and maybe Shisa shows up if you're going to do Pause Hearts?
Yeah, but the problem is if you're gonna bring back Maury, but you already did the you can't do Royal Brothers again. Like
No.
Henry. Yeah, I was trying to think what so I was like, you can't do Henry again because they made a big point, or Maury made a big point that he only was going to return once for Henry and leave it there.
Yep.
Henry, for those who do not know, is the other name for Takuya Sugawara. A lot of Takuya Sugawara talk in the last 10 minutes, Case. Let's move on to something a lot more happy. Super Florida Brothers defeat Renaissance.
Yeah, this was fun. You know, I'm always the perennial Florida Brothers hater, no matter what incarnation of the group we get. But I really enjoyed this. I found myself chuckling, which is more than I normally do for a Florida Brothers match.
Yeah, I mean, they did absolutely everything that you're going to do in a Johnson and Jackson Florida match. Like you do the fact that, and so everyone who you've probably seen like the senior Lariato gifts whenever he does the gifts of Florida Brothers. This is not that Florida Brothers. This is the later Florida Brothers. But they ran through all the bits there, and you had Renaissance actually do more as Renaissance than they ever did.
I want the footage of the Owashi produce show to come out so bad because they did Dragon Kid, Doi, Susumu, and Kanda versus Ken Oka, Sachihoko Machine 2, Toru Owashi, the aforementioned Brother Yashi, and Pescatore Yagi in the main event, a 5-on-4 handicap match. And look, it's not like Yagi was going to be Grand Hamada to begin with, but I think that would be the first non-Florida Brother Yagi match since let me look here. Since 2007, when the referees wrestled Muscle Outlaws.
Yeah,
and then
part of the Kenta Tomoaka face turn storyline.
Yeah. And then the last time he didn't wrestle as a Florida Brother was 2003. Baker Yagi in a 3-way over Kness and Stalker Ichikawa.
Yeah, so Johnson, Florida, for those who do not know, he was unmasked in the match. It was Takayuki Yagi. Do not know who was playing Jackson, Florida on this night. I was trying to figure that out. That's
a good point. I never even thought about that, but I don't know.
Because Jackson, Florida, the one who with the cane, was very reminiscent of, and this is going to be me and Alan Farrell remembering this person, Koji Shishido, former Tozawa Juku bannerman and backstage worker, but he's been out of the company since like 2012. So I have no idea, and it didn't physically look like someone obvious for me. I would have guessed it was Yosuke, but I know Yosuke's had that bad neck injury, so.
Yeah, I've been meaning to ask what Yosuke's status is, but yeah, I couldn't put it together. Real quick on this Owashi Produce show, have you seen this card?
I read Dramatic DDT a whole lot, and I remember that I saw that card going up. I was like, oh, this looks a lot of fun, and I don't remember exactly other than like he got everyone from Torimon on it. All right, I'm seeing it now. Yeah, because you have like a Torimon X reunion match in the middle of this thing, Kate.
Well, yeah, you have an X reunion and like this weird sort of 10-man tag, but then you've also got, this seems right up your alley, Chris Brooks and Masahiro Takanashi versus Genki Horiguchi and Arakin versus Shogo Takagi and Takuya Sugawara.
So that match was Chris Brooks, I think, got a favor for this.
This feels very on brand.
Yeah, that he always wanted to wrestle, I think, Genki. Was the story?
Oh, hey, so do I. It's a man after my own heart.
Yeah, like, oh gosh, $550 for Shinjuku face for this. I maybe let Toru Owashi take over the Splinter Promotions of Dragons.
Maybe let him just book somewhere because he's friends with everybody. The amount of favors he could pull. And
this actually relevant to the program this is his last in-ring year. He announced at this debut show. So this is his last year, and he will be splitting his time now, making his not full-time Dragongate return, but he will be wrestling a lot more in Dragongate, starting with Rey de Parejas teaming with Aganiso partner Suchi Kondo.
Yeah, so his final year as a full-time wrestler, like you said, I don't think we're going to get an official retirement at the end of the year, but he's going to slow down dramatically. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with this. I think it's
great.
Yeah, I find him to be harmless at worst and every once in a while decent. But I know his presence is very off-putting for some people, but I do not mind this whatsoever.
it's something where I think for a lot of these guys, especially as we've started to see in 2019, like I I want as many people who started under Torimon Japan or started in the Dragon system to get whatever closure they kind of want to have in their career with the home promotion. So if it's something where Toru Owashi getting to do this and getting to have more time and basically the air promotion that he started his career in to close it out on a good note, I think that's great. I think that we've learned over this weekend that letting people have a level of respect in their retirement year, as we've seen through Sting, is something that we should exhibit a lot more in this industry. So I think this is awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well said.
So, and then we had the opener, Masquerade defeating Natural Vibes. It was Punch Tominaga from the first chapter of Natural Vibes, joining up with the modern Jackie Funky Kame and UT. They do the original party anthem dance, and it's Masquerade, Kota Minoura, Dragon Dia, and Jason Lee. And Jason Lee, bless his heart, he's a heavyweight now, okay? So he can't be wearing Masquerade gear, but Dragon Dia pinned Punch Tominaga after 10 minutes with a DDT.
Why do you think it is? Because I saw some people talking about this on the Discord, and I had it as a note watching the match before I read anybody's comments, and I thought it was so interesting. Multiple people picked up on it. Why do you think it is that Minoura looks so much more comfortable in Masquerade than he does in Gold Class?
Because I think the most obvious thing is that the spotlight's not on him.
Okay, all right, maybe that's it.
I mean, just being like blunt, like he was number 2 in Masquerade, but everyone knew that was Shun's unit, and that was his breakout unit, but not one where he was the 2, but there was no real responsibility that he had. Like at a certain point, Gold Class, when Gold Class is said and done and dusted case, we have to talk about how much of it do we really put onto, or how much of Gold Class gets put on in the after effect and Kota Minoura moving on past it, you know?
Well, I mean, look,
I think he's fine.
Yeah, he's been fine, but 5 years from now, when we think of Gold Class, we're going to think of Ben and we're going to think of Minorita.
Mm-hmm. And then we had to go like, oh, wait, whose unit that was? Oh, that was Kota Minoura's. Huh.
Yeah, and part of that is, we're going to go, wait, who did it start with? Oh, full-time Doi, Kaito Ishida, and Kota Minoura, and then you just look at all the various incarnations of the unit since. But look, it's Minoura's unit, but it's not what he'll be remembered for, and it's not what we'll remember this unit for either.
No, that's fair. It's just more of like, this was, and the promotions had this over times, like the initial landing for folks and like the first spotlight doesn't always take off. And I feel like, at least for me, that's what kind of Gold Class was, is that because all the insaneness happened, and for better and for worse, Kota Minoura got through it.
I am so curious to see what he does next.
Right, yeah, especially like considering how things are kind of positioned this year. Things are very kind of quiet around him in Gold Class.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they're the afterthought. They've only got one team in Rey de Parejas, and that team I don't think has any shot of winning the tournament.
It's not the top team.
No. And the top, Team Muscle already wrestled Kiyomiya and Alejandro at Final Gate. So, not to get into a Rey de Parejas preview here, but they're not going anywhere. They'll be middle of the road at best in the weaker block.
Right, yeah. So it's just like, okay, Gold Class, we will check in with you in April, I feel like.
That's probably that's very safe to say, yes.
But that was Gate of Nostalgia, something where, hey, at the end of the day, we didn't really talk about Real Hazard on this. I really liked Real Hazard on the show. And at the end of the day, getting to see Real Hazard and Mad Blankey, I can't be mad about that. I'm going to stop complaining about nostalgia shit.
I thought the show was very, very fun. I was into everything outside of the Dia Hearts presentation. And the main event I consider to be must watch. So really an enjoyable show. And again, if anything, like we started at the top of the show, the crowd for Nostalgia Gate was just so unreal that makes it worth watching more than anything.
And it's something where if you're I would say delinquent Dragongate fan, and one that has dipped in and dipped out a lot over the years, I mean, hell, the most popular heel unit of modern Dragongate is in the main event there. what else is there to get you back into the pool here? The water is fine.
I was gonna read this note for Champion Gate, but I'm realizing it might make more sense here because Valletta was in the main event. Do you want me to read a DM from somebody that was at the show about Gianni Valletta?
Please do.
They said, and I quote, "I was sitting on the side of the arena that Gianni Valletta entered from. In fact, he walked down my aisle first as I was near the entrance. The family sitting next to me was already holding their personal belongings prior to him coming through the curtain, anticipating his arrival. When he stormed out, they sprinted in the opposite direction at a hilariously quick speed. Valletta walking in my direction was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. I stood up and promptly got out of the way. I cannot stress how much aura he has in the building." And then this person went on to say, "I went to the bathroom after the match. There is a mother consoling a young daughter who was crying hysterically, and I have to assume it was due to how frightening Valletta was. Additionally, the trainee who checks tickets at the entrance was still selling Valletta's attack from the post-match. Everything about it was wild in a way that I cannot properly encapsulate with words." End quote.
I kind of, after Champion Gate and after this weekend, I'm now so fully on board Johnny Valletta. Like I'm a full believer now, Case.
Dude,
like,
this will be one of my greatest victories. I saw this coming from a mile away. I said, everybody, let's deal with the squashes. If he can figure out how to make his strikes look deadly, which he has, this is going to be a massive win for the promotion. I don't think he'll be around a year from now. I don't think he'll be around 5 years from now. Valletta, in the short term, is a massive win. They have figured this thing out. The big roadblock with his booking is honestly the
Singles.
first Rey de, it's the first Rey de Parejas match with Kondo and Iwashi and what they do with that finish, which we'll get to in a second. But oh my God, I think they have hit beat for beat with him as well as you can.
And it's something where like where he really like plied his trade at. You could see how they could kind of get their mind into a Johnny versus a Johnny Dreamgate shot very easily. Like that's what they were going to do with Brody Lee. Like this seems like now, how many years after the fact, they finally have a monster that they're going to feed to a champion.
That's so interesting because I was thinking about what I want from Valletta and if I would want that match, especially if it's Monte, and I kind of leaned no, because I think his specialty is just 6-man tags. I think he needs to be in as many 6-man and 8-man tags as possible, and I think eventually somebody, whether it's UT or Kamei or somebody much smaller than him, they're going to pin him, and the place is going to go absolutely insane. I don't know who I want that person to be. I don't know when that's coming. But honestly, if Valletta never worked a singles match in Dragongate again, I would not mind. Not that he's bad at them. I just think his calling is chaos. It's letting him be a brick wall with everybody else running around him. I think that's where he really thrives.
I just wonder if you get to a certain point where, so we'll get into Champion Gate proper in a second, but he has so many direct pinfalls. He has so many wins. He now has singles match wins over not just rookies, not just small guys, but people who have a little bit of cachet. And at a certain point, you said, like, look at him and go, like, do we kind of want to do like a Corkin Hall, Johnny versus Luis Monte Dreamgate match?
Yeah, he's not the guy I would worry about in that scenario. I would just worry if Monte was able to adapt to him or not.
I feel like that he could. I'm a full believer now. I feel like that should be the future there. But let's talk about Champion Gate case. This was the combined show. Came the next day. Higher attendance higher announced attendance than the night before, and I think we have to walk away saying this is one of Dragongate's best shows, period, in 9 months, I would say.
Yeah, they announced a higher attendance for this show. Ho-Ho noted that there was a bigger setup for Champion Gate than there was Nostalgia Gate. I don't know. I'm very dubious of the number they put out there. But
they announced higher than Fantastic Mania.
Yes,
which,
and
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It might have been even, might have been 100 people less, but it was still compared to some of the Osaka #2 shows I've seen this year, quite a healthy attendance.
Yeah, it is something, especially like I mentioned, that I've been watching like through that Glade show, did feel very much like double the attendance.
Do you want to do a Glade pit stop real quick?
Let's talk about this Osaka show. SB Kento kind of just losing everything against Hayato Tamura.
Boy, am I disappointed. I thought that match was going to be so much better than it was, and Kento looked like such a jag, just a non-entity. And I've been okay with his Glade output. Fujiwara is the one I've been worried about.
You've been higher on him in the company than I am, and it just, he looks like a kid now.
Yeah, that was I didn't think that was a very good Glade show. I did not enjoy Soma Watanabe versus Takuma all that much outside of the monkey flip to the floor that Takuma took, which was utterly insane.
Right, yeah.
I had mildly high hopes for Lindemann and Jiro, and I didn't think that was any good. The Strong Hearts Bulk Orchestra match, I've seen Yamamura have a few better matches than that since his return. And man, I mean, I would go maybe 3.25 on Tamura versus Kento. I mean, I was so confused by it because I felt like Kento and Takuma were pretty established heels and Glade at this point, and that Tamura, was a tweener. I mean, he's the most popular guy in the company. Even if Bulk Orchestra is presented as heels, Tamura is essentially a babyface. And then they did like a 16-minute SB Kento beatdown, and the crowd didn't seem that into it. And Kento wasn't very good working underneath, and Tamura was as dry as he's ever been. And it was so disappointing. And it has a 7.56 on Cage Match. People liked it more than I did, but man, I didn't think that was any good.
7.56, that's saying just above 3.75. Yeah, I don't see that at all. I was maybe 3 on it. I felt bad for Tamura because he's trying to do this kind of match, but or kind of turn on SBK where he was trying to play more in heel, and the crowd just was not invested whatsoever into SBK. Whatsoever.
No, and this is not you and I being haters either. I really wanted to like this match, and I didn't, and it sucks.
This was a match that I felt like that they had to do. They had to get this kind of match out of them, so I was expecting this, and I was hoping that it was going to be a lot bigger than this. And it's something where, like, I can't really blame Tamura for that.
No, he was. I mean, I didn't think this was a particularly good night for Tamura, but he also wasn't the problem.
No, I think you're right about that. And then, Takuma, it is something where I think, like, the one thing about the SB Taku departure that now really kind of puts things on display is it really, like, at least, like, SBK, we knew how young he was. We knew how young Takuma Fujiwara was, right? But they just feel like kids out there now. And it never, ever felt like that while in Dragongate before. Like, there's just like an air about it. And then you see the tweets that SBK is tweeting, and yeah, probably half of them are bets. And you're just like, oh, okay, all right. These guys are kids.
I mean, the problem here is, how... For as good as they were, and I even with hindsight, I have zero regrets on the verbiage that I used when describing them as Dragongate prospects. I really thought, and at this time in 2021 or 2022 rather, because Fujiwara had a debut in 2021 at this time, but at this time in 2022, I thought this was a future Kobe World main event. But you take guys who, again, Fujiwara wrestled 6 months in Dragongate before I went to Mexico. He's now not working a full-time schedule. He goes from the busiest schedule in Japan with, strict regiments and a behavior policy and a desire from everybody on the roster to be great to now he's working low-level lucha indies. AAA books him every once in a while in the same match that he's always in. And then he does the odd Glade show here and there, but it's not like they run a full-time schedule. So especially in the case of Fujiwara, how is he going to get better? Kento, again, I'm a little less worried about. This was This to me was like wait, what's going on with Kento here? But I'm not worried about him. Fujiwara, just what are you gonna do if you're him? He's not wrestling ever.
Yeah, and I guess at this point now, like essentially a year. I mean, we're basically a year removed from them returning from Mexico, at least at Dragon Gate's request. And I just don't know necessarily if where they are, given everything, a year after they essentially stopped being Dragon System wrestlers. I don't think them that this is better off than just going into private life for a bit, or trying to just stay in Mexico just doing indie stuff. Like it's somehow the AAA thing and the Glade thing has really in a way make me go like, all right, so at what point do you have to make decisions? And I feel like that it's just it's a bummer. Like there's no other way to put it. And especially we compare that to, you see like the Sheen that had that, like even Takahiro Yamamura has, like feeling more like a complete, feeling more like a professional, frankly. And that's not
the
there.
Yamamura thing. I can't believe. I mean, I still don't like it. Watching him wrestle still makes me really uncomfortable, and I am not the safety police.
Yeah,
but
it's
but
something
oh my
that,
god, he's so good.
Right, and he just kind of, in a lot of ways, feels like the professional, complete kind of character. And maybe some of that is the fact that he had all those extra years, and the fact that even afterwards, there, like if we want to talk about Strong Hearts and OWE, there still was a system there versus two guys completely cut loose.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't see ring rust with Lindemann, even if he's not working a super full-time schedule, and it's not there with T-Hawk, and it's, it's not totally there with the Ishida, although I do worry about him and his progression. It's just a problem where Kento and Takuma are in no man's land, and I said it, you got to remember, like, Kento was at Champion Gate last year, just in the locker room, so it was in either late March or early April when shit hit the fan there, but they were planning on having them back even at this point last year. But had they just not gone to Glade, and again, I don't know the financial situation, maybe they're getting paid a ton of money to be in Glade. I think per scale, they're probably getting paid well. But had they just waited and stayed in Mexico and done what they could there and not had a presence in Japan, the door to Dragon Gate seems slightly ajar, but that door is bolted shut now. There's not an opportunity coming in Mexico with the mess that AAA is, because Conan publicly has put them over and says that they can work and that he likes what they do, but there's no road to glory for them with AAA. Noah is not an option. I don't think DDT does them any favors. Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and it's just at a certain point then, when does it kind of look in the mirror kind of moment? And that was kind of like my takeaway. Like this, it was weird for me, like that. I feel like Case in general, I have a general more positive demeanor towards Glade than you do. I feel like now at this point.
I mean, the promotion is fine. I just think it's so flawed.
Oh, I think it is just, I think the flaws are interesting at this point. Like, it is not a healthy promotion at all. And it's just kind of wild to kind of watch it be kind of put on display there. But I just, at a certain point, I just wonder, like, I just think about, like, the amount of sponsors at one time Kento Kabune had just from a Nagoya alone, that more often than not, like, you would see all those patches and all the thing. And what was the thing was hers? Like, this kid is money. This guy is just, everyone is like wanting to like reach out and kind of like be a part of it. And now it's just at a certain point where I'm like, when are we done playing out this string?
You know who has a lot of sponsors now on their ring gear?
Oh, Rhea Fuda does.
Rhea Fuda does indeed.
Yeah, let's just get right into Champion Gate. Case has the review up on voicesofwrestling.com. Opener, it is gold class. They're not the main characters. They're basically the NPCs of the roster for the next month. They face off against Don Fuji, Masaki Mochizuki, and the returning Ryu Fuda. The first time he was wrestling since last September. Really, he was at that point, his high water mark in his career when he had just a horrific hand injury and reconstruction, returning in this match and just really turning it on immediately, I would say. Okay.
Yeah, to me this was a Fuji, or I'm sorry, not a Fuji, a Fuda Ben K match. I mean, I thought when they were in the ring, the intensity got ramped up and the overall match quality got ramped up to such a massive degree. It was really great to see Fuda back. He looks totally insane. I think we have to mention that. What do you think of his new look?
It's kind of like a little bit of Yuma with him about it. I kind of feel a little bit Yuma Aoyagi about him.
I could see that. That's a very good comp. You're right. Just with a really, again, no other word to use, an insane dye job on his hair, but ring gear very similar. Yes.
Yeah. It's either that or Yuya Susumu level hair color. You know.
Yeah, that's your great pulse. I would not have been able to come up with those, but you're exactly right. God, I want him to work out so bad. He is so talented.
And it's something where I feel like he's had so many starts and stops that everyone now collectively is behind him. And
because he keeps coming back.
He keeps coming back, and especially like if you're going to make a return and have a 11-minute match, he loses due to the spear to Benkei, and have performances where they were big like spot moments where Fuji and Mochizuki turn on him and then he starts kicking them down and all of that. And the crowd is just enraptured by him. And it's just like, all right, maybe like the whole idea of Chihiro Tominaga was the most famous dojo student. And that's where a lot of his backing came from, was way back then, for the fact that he just would not quit. I feel like that now with Ryu Fuda, that he just has a leg up now with the audience because of that.
That's a great point. You know, the hurdle with him now that isn't health related, and we won't get this at the Cork and Hall show because he's in a singles match against him. Fuda has to be able to survive away from Masaki Mochizuki, whether it's teaming or as an opponent. He has to be able to do the things that, to draw a direct comparison, that Keisuke Okuda couldn't do. You know, Okuda had one mode, and it wasn't really a Dragongate mode. And when he got away from Mochizuki or Mochizuki Dojo or Kaito Ishida, we saw that he couldn't have, as odd as this might sound, the Punch Tominaga style of match. You know, he couldn't be funny. He couldn't be gimmicky. He couldn't be warm. And I think Fuda can. I just need to see him do it without Mochizuki in the ring one way or the other.
Yeah, because, like, we have seen Fuda have the striker match. We've seen what happened to him after the striker match. We need him to do Dragon System shit. Like, that's what it boils down to, because, like, we know he's going to have probably 3 3/4 is what we kind of expect over under in that match. Just for
him and Mochi, yeah. I mean, Mochi tweeted this out today, and I started thinking about it. I don't know if I've ever seen an opening match Mochizuki singles match in Korakuen.
Very rare, I feel like. Like, I would have to go back through Cage Match, and we did enough of that in the pre-show of looking through, trying to discover certain things. But yeah, it's something where he's in this position where, like, yeah, I fully expect that opener is going to be amazing, but I kind of need to see Ryu Fuda be able to do like Gong Kids and be able to do a whole bunch of rubber band attacks with Genki Horiguchi. That's what he needs. Less of the Kuda stuff, like you were saying, more the tried and true.
And I think he can do it. You know, I think he has that level of charisma that's very doable. But man, I'm in his corner. I'm rooting for him. I really, really want to see him do something this year. I get the feeling, and again, this will be wrong by the time everybody hears it, but you know, he debuted against Mochi and lost. I'm not necessarily expecting him to beat Mochi, but I expect them to do some sort of promo or angle or something where Fuda is almost doing a second debut here, and I expect him to have some real momentum coming out of that match. I really wish they did like he and Tanaka in Rey de Parejas, or maybe even Fuda and Daiki. Just something. The fact that there's not a rookie team in there is very dumb to me.
Or at least doing like a mini Young Lions Cup there, or Young Dragons Cup right now. It feels like this could be a time for that.
Well, who you would do? Tanaka, Daiki, Fuda. No one else is healthy.
Daiki, Fuda. I mean,
Nagano's out. Junior's gone. You can't find Estrella.
Yeah, and JFK is just not in that position anymore.
No,
to do that.
he's 4 years in, and
yeah,
could be challenging for a Dreamgate belt soon.
I mean, UT was doing the rookie ranking league 6 years in, case.
Yes, but Jackie Funky Kamei has accomplished so much more than UT did then or now.
Fair. No, you're absolutely true to this. But we're talking about wanting to be in someone's corner, like the way that it seems like everyone wants to be in Ryo Fuda's corner as right now. But in Osaka, in his hometown, everyone was in Takashi Yoshida's corner as he took on Johnny Valletta in a special singles match. It was the battle of the 2019 Real World Tag League partners. They exploded, but it was Johnny Valletta getting the win in 7 minutes and 4 seconds with a King Kong knee drop. But we're finally to see if you might be able to beat this Johnny guy if you're big enough.
Really fun match. This, I guess I should have read the excerpt about Valletta here because it was after this match that the person was referring to. But, I don't have a lot to say about the match itself. I have a lot to say about the post-match. When Valletta started choking Takashi Yoshida with a chain, and what did you think of Yoshida's sell job?
I thought for a moment that I was wondering if he got knocked loopy and he was just sitting there. Because he just sat there.
There's 3 options. He got knocked loopy, didn't know what was happening, and was just sitting there. He was aware of what was happening and was just sitting there. Or he was playing dead. And I don't know which of the 3 it was.
Well, which one do you want it to be? Because I feel like playing dead is the funnier thing.
Playing dead is far and away the funniest option possible. Because it can't be one, because after he stops getting choked, he does like a cartoon shaking himself awake motion, like he just blacked out during the chain attack. It couldn't have been that.
Yeah. I wonder if it was something where, it's like a fencing reaction, maybe.
It was one of the weirder things I have ever seen.
But this match, you went 2.5 stars on this case. I was 3.25. I loved it. I thought this was ruled. This is big guys like Takashi Yoshida country, and how over the crowd was when he finally took Johnny Valletta off his feet, got a 1 count, and the crowd was like, wow, finally someone got a pinfall on this guy.
Yeah, no, I thought the match was very fun for what it was. You have a higher ceiling on it than I do, but I said in my review, the thing that I love is when they locked up for the first time, the first move of the match was a lockup. It wasn't something where they were going through the motions. The lockup felt like it had real power and emotion behind it, and I love that. I like the way this match was worked quite a bit.
I think it did 2 things for me here, Case. We had just feeding into Johnny now at this point. You just have to kind of just breathe it at this juncture. And the fact that I think I've become a hidden Dragon System heavyweight sicko over the last.
I don't think it's hidden. I think you're very public about it.
I like seeing when the big guys get out there. I like to imagine that whenever Johnny Valletta got out of his limousine showing up at this venue, he took a breath of fresh air and he said, oh, this is where the big boys play. Match 3, the final undercard match, was for a year's supply of toilet paper, as it was Natural Vibes. So Strong Machine J removed from the weekend for a shoulder injury. We all know what this model's issue is. He's constantly in the shop about the shoulder, but also just being completely dead set on Rey de Parejas because suddenly he thinks that Natural Vibes needs to be winning hardware. So he's off. He was off this weekend. We got the rest of the Natural Vibes. Big Boss Shimizu, Jackie Funky Kamei, Jason Lee, KZ, and UT. They went up against Case, as you put out in the review the Fire Pro Random Button team, as it's Rey de Parejas team, Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi, Yamato, who is not teaming with anyone here, Sachihoko Boy, who's here along for the ride, and Ho Ho Loon. Ho Ho finally wins a LEC sponsorship match in this one here. Kamei gets in the finishing stretch. Everyone was just kind of fast firing. We have Dragon Kid and Doi running into each other. We have Jason Lee, however, clocking Jackie Funky Kamei. Dragon Kid was able to make it into the crucifix, gets the win here, and Ho Ho Loon gets 3 months of toilet paper.
Yeah, no, fun stuff here. A slow start to this match, a great finish, and I will sort of table my thoughts here because I want to spend more time talking about Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi when we do our Tag League preview. But a great finish to this match. Good stuff here.
Yep, fun undercard on Champion Gate. And then we got to our 3 championship matches, starting off with the Open the Brave Gate Championship. Hyo makes his 5th successful defense of the title against Yasushi Kanda with the Samson driver. Case, I give the floor to you.
I think this is the type of match we all wanted Hyo to have. And I guess we should start with Hyo and then we can pivot to Kanda, because this was outside of Hyo's singles match versus Shun Skywalker that he had in January. This was the best Hyo singles match I've ever seen. You know, I went back because I started thinking about it. And I've thought about this with Ben and Shun before, but I haven't really had a need to think of it with Hyo. But like, Mike, think about it. We've watched 98% of the Hyo matches that have made tape. We've been doing this podcast together for almost his entire career. I've written about, you know, basically every Korakuen match he's had, and if I haven't, you have. We've seen this man's entire career. So I went back and I looked at every spreadsheet I have from 2016 on, and the only 2 Hyo singles matches I have at 4 stars or higher, like I said, it's Shun this year, and it's this Kanda match. And man, this really impressed me from both guys.
And I think what made this one work when we compare it to the 4 other defenses he had, and something where I felt like was a part of his title win, was this was a really big and deep Hyo from underneath feeding off the crowd match.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then from there, you know what really kind of struck me about this? Because you had the Punch Tominaga match in Wakayama where everyone's just like, all right, it's Punch Tominaga here for that. We had the very short match against both Kagetora and Genki Horiguchi. What we actually had here was Hyo in doubt underneath, and then just a really kind of professional, by the books, champion persevering match. And it was what was needed here. He ate everything Yasushi Kanda threw at him, and he got through it, and he comes out of this match even after losing the night before, and it's just Hyo's the most popular guy in the company, and he had perhaps the best singles match of his career here, because Yasushi Kanda and him were able to figure this out, that Hyo basically should be taking 75% of all of his title matches at this point and just feed off the crowd.
Yeah, you really think about it, like, Hyo got his ass kicked in this match, you know?
And it was what needed to happen.
Oh my God. I mean, they couldn't have worked it better. I think about the 2 T-bone suplexes that Kanda threw Hyo's way, where, I mean, Hyo went neck first on both of those.
Yeah. And it is something where the one thing that he really always has had that he never traded on was the fact that he can be the babyface in peril. He was never the babyface in peril in Mochizuki Dojo because the crowd wasn't behind him at that point to be that babyface in peril. He's finally kind of figured that out here now.
That's a great point. His sole job in that unit was to get heat so that Shun Skywalker could make a hot tag. That was his only role.
It wasn't like that people were wanting to see him do anything. They wanted him to make the hot tag and see if Shun was going to kill himself on doing a cabrata to the outside.
That's literally, I mean, this was Shun's 2017, was work an 8-man tag and do the Cape Rana to the floor. He spent an entire year doing that. And Hyo, by proxy, spent an entire year getting his ass kicked in said 8-man tags.
Right. So it is something where, hey, now it's applying in his best form right now, like being able to take that from 7 years ago. But my biggest takeaway from this was they basically figured out the formula here for Hyo, and I think that Hyo was excellent when he had it figured out. He's such a great babyface in peril. He's able to really get the crowd in the moments, and it is something where Yasushi Kanda, I mean, we got 2 Gekijudo elbow drops. We got virtually everything but the Cancun tornado. So Hyo just eats everything and is able to win by Samson driver. It sounds like a great formula for me going forward in this reign.
It was really great. You know, I the only knock I have on the Smash is that the Samson driver is a dumb finish.
Yeah, and this is even after he had like a good moment with the hunting, and on this, for once, the hunting cutter made sense. And it's just something where, God, for a guy who has had so many different finishes he has tried, and when he's on the run of his career, he might have picked his worst one to be his primary finish.
I'm so curious where they go next with him, because you've got basically 2 months now. Maybe a month and a half, because you got to remember in April, once they get done with the tag league, they have a double shot in Fukuoka, and then the week after that they have a double shot in Kobe. So I could see them trying to do a Bravegate match in Kobe. I would hope that Fuda is aligning himself to where he is either the next defense or the defense after that. It feels like they're already running out of guys, because there's not a lot of super qualified Bravegate guys. And I think Fuda can have this style of match with Hyo and they can create magic again.
Yeah, it is. It is something where I think that he has... You might need to bring some guys up and get some other people up in the picture, just because I don't know if you want to take the belt off him. And I feel like if you have Fuda there, like, at least with how everything felt like Fuda coming out of the show, if you have Fuda around here, I'm going to have my eyebrow raised about him. And it's a wild thing, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about Rey de Parejas. It is an issue, though, where you look at where his block, and he's had a lot of title matches against people in the block. So I wonder where they go to it from here.
Very much so, but a great match, well worth watching. The Kanda thing, I've never really seen anything like this, and you and I just are a few weeks removed from enjoying pre-neck injury Kanda to a degree that I think surprised the both of us. But my God, I mean, he was fantastic in his role in this match, and I wrote this in my review, which weird anecdotal note nobody cares about. I have in my Dragongate archive on my computer, I have a written review for Champion Gate 2018. I see no evidence it was ever published to voicesofwrestling.com, which is my fault, not Rich's fault. I don't know why that is. It's been driving me nuts, but I went back and looked at my Champion Gate 2018 review. I gave Kanda versus Punch a dud because they wrestled for the Bravegate belt that year, which again, 2018 sucked. I don't know why some people do revisionist history there, but it's just, 6 years, 6 years later, Kanda's having this 4-star Bravegate match that he's almost leading in a way, a year after he's in one of the best tag teams in all of wrestling. I just can't fathom what he's doing right now.
I just think he's at a point where he's just wrestling and it all clicked. Like, I don't know.
Which you wouldn't think 15 years after returning from a serious neck injury, that would be the time that this would happen, but it is.
Because there's like no really big discernible difference in how he's wrestling, really.
No. I mean, again, it was him and Susumu for all of last year, which Lord knows we've seen that a ton of times, and they really found the magic with each other last year. But I assume, he's just not going to have it in a singles capacity. But boy, was I wrong.
And then we had our semi-main event for the vacant Open, the Dragongate Championships. Of course, vacated when Yoshiki Kato went down with a knee injury. It was Ishin Kai and Shun Skywalker for Z-Brass versus the D-Courage team, Dragon Dia, Madoka Kakuta, and Ryoya Tanaka. It was the Z-Brass team putting away Ryoya Tanaka when Ishin had probably one of the most brutal-looking Jinchus he's had his entire career, just completely pays him after what I think, at least at this point of the year, my Dragon Gate match of the year. This was fantastic.
I think in the short term, this is one of the biggest Dragon Gate booking mistakes that they've had in quite some time. And I thought the match was phenomenal. I still have it a step below the Twin Gate match from Gate of Bayside, which I'm obsessed with how good that match is. Had the finish been different, I think this would have been the Dragon Gate match of the year, and this would have held up very well in worldwide match of the year come end of the year. I think it was a grave error to not have Ryoya Tanaka win this match for a number of reasons. One, I just don't know if they're ever going to be in a spot where they have this hot of a crowd with this good of a match, with Tanaka feeling as hot as he currently does. This felt like a time where it's not about the chase, it's about the reward. You know, wrestling is a give and take of, you know, something called Heat Brother, and also just giving the fans what they want sometimes. And I think this was a scenario where they really needed to give the fans what they wanted. I don't know how you improve on this situation. And that is part one. I will throw it to you before I make my second part as to why I hated the booking of this so much.
Yeah, this felt like a moment where, at least in the past, and we have so many examples of this, where Dragon Gate could have made someone in, like fully made someone in one night. The crowd was just effervescent towards the closing stretch, especially how Tanaka each time felt like he was getting closer and closer, and D-Courage was really laying him out in like such a way, like basically given Ishin on a platter in the same way that they set up the win in earlier this year against Ishin for Tanaka. And it just felt like, oh gosh, this is the company that I felt like would no doubt would have gone like, oh, the crowd's going insane here. Ryo Saito's at the table. He should have like pulled on his earlobe and changed the finish. And
yeah,
at least for the next like few weeks, and you could easily have Z-Brats beat them soon enough to take the belts away. Just for this night,
you could have beat them at one of the Fukuoka shows next month, and nobody would bat an eye, and nobody would care. And I don't think that would be the wrong decision, but they missed out on something. And it might have been one where, you know, they were in the back thinking, you know, there's no way this match is going to be this good, and then it turned out to be this good. But the other reason why I think it's silly that Tanaka didn't win is think about everything we talked about with Gate of Nostalgia. You know, I know just talking to people that were there were fans that hadn't been in the building in quite a while that were in the building for that show. And one would have to assume that there were some lapsed fans that said, hey, you know what, I'll go to both shows. Or maybe there were eyeballs that were on this show just because of the show the night before. Sometimes to make a guy look like a star, he just has to win matches. And I think they've handled Tanaka very well up until this point. I loved the way that he got his first win. I love the momentum that he has with the time limit draw in Kyoto. I just think they whiffed badly on not making it so painfully obvious front and center. Get the photo in the magazine. Here's your new Triangle Gate champion. He's a star. You need to go watch him.
Yeah, and for a company that plays off so much and does so well with their bread and butter of local promotion and being the wrestling promotion that goes to every prefecture, and will, as long as there is a room in your town big enough for a wrestling ring, you can have Dragon Gate in your town. You have a guy who's in a building that Jay brings it up all the time, not just because it's a great like a flavor text for Ryoya Tanaka, but something that the company traditionally, like we had our great pit stop earlier talking about a guy that they basically in a way realized his hometown draw was a thing and made Nagoya the SB Kento show for about 18 months. This is a building that means that Ryoya Tanaka has a history with.
Yeah, Osaka's considered his home market from where he grew up. He grew up near Osaka, but they looked at, you know, when they did Bravegate, him and Ishin at Gate of Destiny, the fans looked at that as a Tanaka homecoming match.
Right. So, I mean, like, it's not just making a guy in the night. It is like, yes, Osaka is a market that Dragongate has such a rich history with. You would not think that they would would need the help, but why not? Like, it just seems like such an easy mislayup.
Yeah, and again, I don't even think 6 months from now this decision is going to have that great of an impact. But
not at all.
I think it really hurts. As we approach the spring here, I just think, and I said this to somebody earlier when we were discussing the finish, because they were more, he'll get his heat back, he'll get the win eventually. But it's like, I don't know if Tanaka wins this match, we remember this match for forever. Think about all the great 6-man tags we're going to watch this year. This will be one of them. This will be high on the list. But when we're a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if this was the Tanaka win and he rolled up Ishin and got the 3, we're going to remember this for years and years and years. We're just going to hear Champion Gate 2024, and we're not going to think of Monte Susumu. We're not going to think of Hyo. We're not even going to think of Nostalgia Gate. We're going to think of Tanaka getting that win, and that being the only thing that matters. And again, they'll be fine. Tanaka will be fine. Ishin will be fine. But man, I just think they missed one bad this time around.
And it's something where, Case, we talk a lot about Dragongate and at least international perception of the company. This is a match that I was 4.5 stars on. I know you are as well. You get the finish changed around. Tanaka wins, and international perception and the kind of things that Dragongate has tried to do for the last 24 months, and sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. One of the big things that has not really happened, there has not been the balls out Dragongate 6-man match over that time period put in such a level where everyone's like, oh, it's a Dragongate match. It's the one right there. They could have made that for Ryoya Tanaka, and it could have been something that's like, oh yeah, and the finish of the match, you had Tanaka win his first title in his hometown. The crowd goes insane, and that changes perception, I feel like, in a lot of ways. And yeah, it's something 6 months ago, as you're saying, or 6 months from now, Ryoya Tanaka will be fine. If anything, the fact that we are arguing about this tells you how fine Ryoya Tanaka is in the long run here. But it just seems like one of those missed opportunities that I just hope that at the end of the year, it's just not like, oh, what's the Dragongate match that people are going to be talking about, when it very easily, I feel like, if you change the finish around, and especially if he hits his splash, because obviously that's the thing they're building up to, is he's not hit his top rope splash on Ishin yet. And that was the thing. Like, even if it was the flash pen finish, I think everyone talks about this match afterwards in a higher level, and I think it makes things a little bit more like there'll be a match out there for Dragongate, and that we don't have right now.
Yeah, a few more points on this. I love that they did the spot. They did the sequence where Tanaka got his first win, who was that on, Hulk?
Yes, that was on Hulk.
Yeah, so they do that same combo of moves, but to Ishin, and Ishin kicks out. And it seemed like, all right, here we go. Like, they're going to come up with something else and be able to put Ishin away. And then credit to Ishin. I mean, this was the best performance he's ever had. And it's why the Kato injury stings as much as it does, because I really felt like with those two, they were really starting to find themselves. And Ishin in particular, this is who he is. He should never cut weight again in his career. He should only put on weight. He should only put on muscle. He's barrel-chested like nobody else is in wrestling right now. Ishin, man, he was good here.
Yeah, Ishin should be 5'6", 220 pounds.
Yeah, he should be built like a bowling ball, and he damn near looks like it right now. I mean, all of Zebrats is great here. Shun is just on another planet. This is not the Shun podcast. We'll have plenty of opportunities to do that.
That's the wild thing about this. Like, this is not the Shun conversation here.
No, it wasn't even the Kakuta. Like, we're not even going to do Kakuta here, I thought was awesome. This was Tanaka and Ishin really stealing the show. And you're right. You this was a changed result away from being the 6-man. I went 4.5. You went 4.5. I have a match in mind. Just off the top of your head, what was the last great, like, hey, we need to pimp this out 6-man that Dragongate had?
I think it was probably an RED and Masquerade match right when Kazuma Sakamoto started to do his crazy running into the ropes knee and started doing the Jason Lee. I feel like that was like the last one. I was like, this is a match that people need to go see.
And even though those are weird because there's not really like a definitive Masquerade RED match.
Right. Yeah. Like, but that's
But
the
I guess
one I remember.
well, by default, the World one turned into that because that was when American promoters would ask about Kento or Estrella, they wrestled at World 2022. No, 2021. And that match is on YouTube. So a lot of people have seen that match that have not seen any other La Estrella matches. But that one was pretty good. The one that I was going to say, because of the quality of it, even though it actually wasn't the match that got shopped around from that weekend, was Champion Gate 2 years ago when it was Vibes. It was Kamei, KZ, and UT, and they lost to Ishida, Minoura, and Doi. Because I went 4 3/4 on that. And I don't think
that one was great. Yeah.
I don't think there's been a Triangle Gate match as good since, but everybody left that weekend talking about Fujiwara and Daya.
Nope, that's fair. Yeah. Like, that was an incredible Triangle Gate match. Now that I'm remembering it, that one was a lot stronger than, yeah, that would have to be it then.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thought experiment. I'm curious, like, the Reiwa 6 tag from last year was really good, but I don't feel like it was on that level where people were like, holy shit, so-and-so needs to see this. I'd like to know if there's a 6-man I'm forgetting, but I don't think there is.
No, I'm drawing a blank as well. Any other last thoughts on the semi-main event before we get into the Dreamgate?
No, that's it.
Open the Dreamgate title match. Luis Monte makes his second successful defense of the Open the Dreamgate title, defeating Susumu Yokosuka with the Vuelta finale. Not a clean-cut win for Luis Monte, and something that I feel like we're probably now setting up for whoever's going to be the next challenger, as this was a bum leg match case.
What do you think, big picture? What do you think of the way they went about the leg selling in this match?
I thought it was something where, it's not the most perfunctory Dreamgate limb work case. Like we're not talking about a Shima special here, like where it was just 10 minutes and then we moved on, forgot completely about it. I think it's something where for this match, I thought that it was slowed down to a point and almost a little bit too far, that it was not able to get back to a gear that I was really hoping for it to hit, maybe. And maybe that was never the intention of this match. Maybe the setup of this match is we're going to have a very good Dreamgate match. They probably don't talk about star ratings, but it's like we're going to go out there, have a great match, and we're going to set up this thing now of Luis Monte entering Rey de Parejas, and I'll be interested in seeing what happens on tomorrow about his leg, because I feel like that now becomes the big plot point in their main event match against Kung Fu Masters tomorrow night.
To show the emotional damage that the collective Dragongate fan base has gone through over the last few years, when Monte hit the ground selling his knee, I threw my hands up in the air and did like a, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I mean, he 1,000,000% got me when he first started selling the knee, like he blew out his knee. And I thought we were witnessing another Dreamgate match that was going to end in minutes, and it was going to end with a champion losing his title because he couldn't physically walk. So credit to Monte on that front. The problem is that they reeled me in there, and then they just took too long to get back in the groove of things. I thought the match ended on a feverish level. I loved the finish. I loved what they did in the back half of the match. But the middle third of it, let's say, I just thought was so unnecessarily slow. And it didn't stop the match from being great. The match was great, capital G, great. But it could have been better. And I think in a weird way, Dragongate almost overcommitted to working a limb, and it became counterproductive by the time they got into the real big moves.
Yeah, it's something where, like, especially when you have things where we see Luis Monte do his incredible springboard 450, we see him able to do the Super Tigre, we're able to see all of it really not affect him too much, but it is something where it is a level damage, but it did slow it down. It did grind it down there, and it kind of hurt it from hitting the heights where you would think that a Susumu Mochizuki Dreamgate match would be, at least for me, because it did absolutely slow things down to a halt. And it's something, at least for the kind of champion that Monte is, I don't think that really does him a good service, you know?
Well, what did you think of the match overall? Where, I mean, it seems like you're pretty down on it.
I'm 4 flat.
Okay.
I'm 4 flat on it. It is something where I think that I think I've not seen a lot of conversation about this point. I feel like that they use this match to set up him taking some losses and Rey de Parejas and Hyo not taking all the falls.
Oh, interesting. I had not thought about it from that perspective at all.
Because you look at eventually that the Rey de Parejas blocks there in the B block, and it is something where like Kakuta probably out of the picture, Shun Skywalker out of the picture there, but if his leg's going down, I mean, you could very easily imagine a KZ direct pin on Monte, a Yamato direct pin on Monte. And I feel like that you could set those things up now a lot easier, whereas before I'd be like, no, there's no reason why Susumu and Yamato should lose to him. Now, at least I want to see how tomorrow plays out before I start really saying this, because if it ends up that somehow JFK or Jason Penn Hyo, that means one thing completely different than what I'm proposing. So I kind of want to see how they're going to book tomorrow's match, but I just feel like that you did so much of this basis around that legwork that it put the thought in my mind that they're going to use at least block play for Big Hug, because also I don't know if you really want to have like what happens if Big Hug wins this tournament. Like, you're not going to have... Are you just going to put all the belts on these two guys here? Like, how are you going to book the rest of your show? So, I think it's a way to get them out of the tournament and perhaps set up Dead or Alive for him.
Interesting. Let me throw something else at you, and then I want to come back to this conversation, okay?
Yep, go ahead.
Susumu Yokosuka, third greatest Dreamgate match worker of all time. I think we would have Mochi and Shingo comfortably ahead of him. But other than that, Susumu's probably the best Dreamgate wrestler ever.
I think, yeah. I think he at least has the match average, because the other person you would put up there is Yoshino, and Yoshino had some absolute duds. But Susumu, it's very hard for me to think of one.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we're too late in the show. I won't do the big break on it that I was planning on, but you know, Mochi's number one, because Mochi not only has just the sheer number of great matches, but he has the historically great. You know, you think about what he did with Kanda in 11, you think about what he did for Bin in 2018, you think about what he did for Yoshioka in 2022. Like, Mochizuki's on another planet, Shingo is on an island all to himself. But you think Yamato, you think Yoshino, you think Shun at this point. I think Susumu has all of them beat, and I feel pretty comfortable. Shima needs to be mentioned, but I think Susumu's the third best Dreamgate wrestler ever.
Yeah, I don't think Shima rates with the other 5 that we've listed here, just because there's such a consistency problem that I feel like he has much more so than Yoshino or Yamato has in those. I think when you like really look at it, Shun, the one thing that hurts Shun is that Shun, at least for me personally, might have a per match average that out of everyone outside of Mochi or Shingo, his is right behind it. He just does not have the whole breadth of it the same way that Susumu and Yamato or Yoshino have.
Yeah, if you take out that Kakuta match where Kakuta
and I feel
got
like
hurt,
we kind of do, yeah.
You know, it's Shun versus Pac in 2019, which I adored, and then it's Shun Eita, Shun Bin, where Bin almost dies, but the match up to that point was very good.
45 seconds earlier, that would have been a 4 3/4 stars match across the board. I still stand by it.
I had no argument for me. And then you have Shun versus Ishida, which I think I did give 4 3/4 stars. Shun and Cosmo, which I know more people like that more than I did, and I still gave that 4.5. Shun and KZ, and then Shun and Yamato from that world. And then the second reign was him and Yoshioka, which was last January, and I was the high man on that. I gave that 4 3/4, but I think most people still really liked it. And then him and Strong Machine J, which was very, very good, if not great. And then he and Kakuta, which I think might have been the highest rated Dragongate match in the Voices of Wrestling Match of the Year poll last year.
I believe it was, yes.
Again, we're going to have a conversation at some point this year about Shun's legacy historically, because I don't think people are putting it together just how amazing he's been for pretty much 8 years now.
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. If we're talking about Dragongate base Hall of Famer, in case we will be having ways of trying to figure out where exactly he is later on this year. But I feel like we're seeing a Hall of Famer not even in his prime years yet.
I'm 1000% with you. So it's probably, if you're gonna run out a top 5 here, it's Mochi, Shingo, Yokosuka, and then Yoshino. Because I think Yoshino is so out of sight, out of mind for us now that I think we kind of maybe are not as appreciative of the golden era of Yoshino as we maybe should be. And then, I'd really have to look through Yamato's cage match and go like, whose output do I like more, Yamato's or Shun's? Because Yamato has had some, there's Mochi in 2011 and Shingo in 2016 and T-Hawk and Yoshino in 2013. Like, there's some gems there, but there's also... Yeah, exactly. But there's also some real stinkers there also.
Yeah, and I think the thing that also hurts Yoshino when we talk about him in these things is not just these out of sight, out of mind. His best Dreamgate matches were not his final ones in those final runs. And I would say his worst Dreamgate work, more often than not, was in those latter runs post-injury. And I feel like that hurt him in a way uniquely different than Yamato. Yamato just, at a certain point, there's an overall charisma kind of conversation and about what charisma works natively and what charisma does not translate, at least outside of the building, that I feel like that Yamato kind of has there. But I think Yamato, though, there are just certain matches that it's just like, 15 minutes and then finally we're getting going here.
Yeah, some real. Yamato's Dreamgate run in 2017. I hate with a passion.
Yeah, but it's one of those things though, Case. I feel like Shun at a certain point, like, we have to recognize just how much better he is at this point of his career than a lot of people, even in the promotion, were like comparatively 6, 7, 8 years into their career.
Yeah, he's marvelous. He's a phenomenal pro wrestler. We won't do the Shun show here, but to recap Champion Gate, I went 4 stars on the Brave Gate, 4.5 on the Triangle Gate, 4 1/4 on the Dream Gate. The stuff that needed to deliver really, really delivered, and I am ecstatic leaving this show. I really liked what I saw here.
Yeah, for the meat of the show, Brave Gate, I was 4 1/4 on. Triangle Gate, 4.5 like Case, and then Dream Gate, I was a little down on. I was 4 stars alone on that. Rey de Parejas kicks off by the time y'all have already listened to this. Do we want to go through Korakuen's card, though, real quick, just so that we've done it?
Yeah. Let me... I've got it pulled up. Do you want me to go through it?
Oh, I've got to.
All right, go ahead.
So this will be, unless somehow this thing gets up real early... this is a 6:30 local time. That's a little early for them on a Wednesday. 6:30 local time start. That's 4:30 on the East Coast. 1:30 in the East. The winners outside of Japan. Greenwich Mean Time. A nice breakfast, 9:30 a.m. The opener is Masaki Mochizuki versus Ryo Fuda, as we talked about before. Match 2. This is not a tournament match. It would be rookie tag, though. Daiki Yanagiuchi and Ryo Tanaka versus Shun Skywalker and Ishin. I believe this match will mark 1 year for Daiki Yanagiuchi's career. So
that's correct.
So keep that in mind. Match 3, we have Strong Machine J making his return after taking this weekend off. He is teaming with Natural Vibes members KZ, Big Boss Shimizu, NUT against a big, giant collective form of question mark, as it's BB Hulk, Takashi Yoshida, Kagetora, and Punch the Managa. I'm willing to guess, Case, that somehow Natural Vibes are going to lose and Strong Machine J is going to be very unhappy.
That's a real possibility, isn't it?
Yep, that's what I see with this. And then we get into tournament play. We get 4 tournament matches, 2 from the A block, 2 from the B. We start off with Yamato and Susumu going up against Madoka Kakuta and Dragon Dia. Match 5, Toru Owashi returning, as we talked about before. And Shuji Kondo versus Kai and Johnny Valletta. We'll talk about this one in one sec. Benkei and Kota Minoura, Team Muscle. And then they're going against Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi. Big Hug versus Kung Fu Masters in the main event. I thought it was Minoura and Baby Hulk as the team.
No, it's Team Muscle.
All right, so it still feels like the Team Muscle are completely out of it here.
Well, yeah, no, they, like I said earlier, they already wrestled Kiyomiya and Alejandro. They're not winning this tournament.
Yeah, but the other 3 tournament matches here, there's different things about each of these matches that I find really interesting. How you get yourself out of Kondo and Owashi and Kai and Valletta. I feel like first and foremost, that's why I'm fascinated about on this show. And then seeing if they're going to build on the Luis Monte knee stuff from Champion Gate.
Yeah, I mean, you could even go up to, D Courage versus Yamato and Susumu. I'm fascinated by this Yamato and Susumu team because we've never really seen it before. So just for the sheer sake of being something different, I love that. I mean, you got to think double DQ for Kai and Valletta versus Owashi and Kondo. As long as they don't beat Valletta, I don't care what the option is. But Valletta cannot lose this match, right?
I mean, Valletta can't lose a match until he loses to Luis Monte in my mind. So yes, no, he can't lose this.
Main event, I have really strong feelings on this, and I don't think they're going to go in the direction that I think they should. I could see Jason winning this because Jason is such a, so clearly a heavyweight now. I could see them trying to set up Jason versus Monte. I could see them trying to set up Kamei versus Monte for the Dreamgate. To me, there's one finish, and that is Luis Monte hitting Jackie Funky Kamei with the most violent Volta finale in the middle of the ring for the finish. To me, this is a don't fuck around, don't get cute. Your 2 baby faces are going over in a match that has match of the year contendership expectations on it. Don't fuck around, have your big stars look like big stars and have them win. And God bless you, Jackie Funky Kamei. I want you buried into the match.
I mean, it's big match Jack, and I feel like that no matter what, he will make the best of it. But
again, he doesn't lose anything by losing.
Right.
I think Big Hug gains so much by winning. Kung Fu Masters, again, they wrestled Kiyomiya and Alejandro. They're not winning this tournament. They're not going to the semifinals. They can lose here. They'll get wins on house shows. We can all move on with our lives. I love them to death. If we're up to me, they'd be, forever Twin Gate champions. I'd buy the War Tag Team belts just to have them as War Tag Team champions, whatever it would be. You bring back the UWA World Tag belts. I don't care. They don't need to win this match. This match means so much to Big Hug if they win and look dominant. And we can look, they'll wrestle again. We can set up Jackie's match later if we need to. This needs to be a Big Hug win, and I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I have now really convinced myself on that they're going to do a Luis Monte now working through the knee issue for their storyline.
Yeah, it's funny because I hadn't really thought of that. I just kind of assumed they would drop it after Dead or Alive, or after Champion Gate, but maybe not.
Yeah, we'll have to see this. Let's run through the teams that we have in Rey de Parejas. As Case said before, there will be a semifinals for this, so it will be the top 2 teams out of each block. A block, Team Muscle, Big Boss Shimizu, Strong Machine J. Easy kind of pick for maybe bottom of the bracket there between those 2. Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi, Toru Owashi, Shuji Kondo, Kai and Johnny Valletta, and then Mozuku Tominaga and Shuri Joe, friends visiting us from Ryoku Dragon Pro Wrestling. They are the current Suryo Twin Dragon Tag Team Champions.
Okay, so let's go team by team here. You tell me what you think realistically. Are they a non-contender? Are they a semifinals possibility? Or are they a finals possibility, okay?
Yep, I feel like that's the best way to do that. Let's do it.
All right, Team Muscle.
I think that they will be a semifinals.
Interesting. Okay, I think they are a complete non-factor in this. I'll put it this way: do not be alarmed if they finish second to last in their block. I don't think it has anything to do with them. I think it is merely they have already had their Twin Gate match and they're not getting another one. So I'm curious to see what they do there. You then have Big Boss Shimizu and Strong Machine Jay.
You see, I think this is the team that finishes bottom of the block because of this will be the obvious place of Natural Vibes falling apart.
Okay, so I have a weird thought with these guys, which is that I think they have real semifinals or finals potential, and it ultimately ends with them losing. They like have decent odds in my mind to make the semifinals, and it is impossible for them to win.
Right.
But I think there's the sports ideology where sometimes losing in the finals is worse than not making the playoffs for a team. And I think I could see a real scenario where they win in block play and then just have a crushing loss later on in the tournament.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they either finish 0 points or they have the most crushing loss, and it feeds into the Natural Vibes dissolution stuff, right?
Yes, yeah. Either way, it's not ending well, but I could see them rattling off a bunch of wins here.
That's entirely fair. You see, how you feel about them is how I feel about Dragongate and Naruki Doi. It's going to be like the fact that these two teams, I could see them be fringe semifinals or finals contenders just because of, okay, it's Dragongate and Naruki Doi, but it's just not going to work out. And as soon as they lose out of this tournament, Naruki Doi is just going to just either turn straight up on Dragongate or just not want a single thing to do with this. This team's called No Hug for a reason.
Hot take, I think they should win the whole tournament. I really do. I mean, if the payoff is Kiyomiya and Alejandro, I'm struggling to find a better looking match on the table than Dragon Kid and Doi versus Kiyomiya and Alejandro. I think they should win the entire tournament.
But then I guess by saying that, you also think that DK and Doi should probably lose to the Noah team at that point.
Oh yeah, no, they're losing to Yoshioka. I mean, it's just a matter of when Yoshioka comes back.
That's fair. How do you feel about Aganiso here? Toru Owashi's return to Dragongate here. Real odd kind of team to be in this block, I feel like. Kind of hard to, because we always thought that Shuji Kondo would be a bigger deal than he is, but is this going to be the Ofer team here?
No, because I think the Ofer team is the Tamanaga team, or maybe there won't even be an Ofer team. Look, they're in this block to do Kai and Valletta. That is the only match that matters, and if that halfway delivers, then more power to them. If there's a better match than that, then great. They've served their goal. I have no problem with them here. I like watching Kondo wrestle meaningful matches, and we will certainly have a shot at that in this tournament. So I'm not bothered by them, but I don't think they're any real contender.
Yeah, is this the most stakes we've had a Shuji Kondo match since he was Strong Machine K?
Probably since he was K, but we talked about this a few months ago. I'm much higher on Kondo's 3.5, 4 years in Dragongate than you are. I have not minded it, and it's largely what I expected it to be.
We have that Z Bratz team, Kai and Johnny Valletta, either going to, I think it's going to have like most of the DQs, double countouts coming out of this team in this block. Like this, but they're not advancing, right?
I could see them being a semifinals team. I mean, and then you just beat Kai. You just make sure you don't beat Valletta. But I could see them rolling into Korakuen looking unbeatable, and then a flash pin beats Kai. I think that's a real possibility. I think they're going to win more than they're DQ'd. I think they're only going to they'll do a double DQ for the big guys tag and Korakuen. I think they're going to win most of their matches.
I think I look at this and you're not going to have them go DQ against the Ryukyu Dragon team, but you're probably not going to have them get DQ'd against Doi and DK.
No, I mean, they'll beat Minoura and Ben.
I could see that being a DQ match.
I don't know. I think there's a real possibility they don't lose ever. They just only don't win against Kondo and Owashi.
Yeah. I guess then, like, the other thing I kind of look at is they're not going to pin Johnny no matter what. Kai has been such a protected person, and now he's a Triangle Gate champion.
I'm telling you, I think they're going to win because those guys aren't losing. And I also, like, imagine them versus Doi and Dragon Kid. I'm really excited to see what they do.
Yeah, no, DK bumping like crazy for that. Mozuku Tominaga and Shuri Joe. I did not realize who Mozuku was up until you pointed this out to me a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, it's a punch gimmick he's been doing in Ryukyu Dragon. I mean, I don't understand why Tanaka and Daiki or Daiki and Fuda aren't in this spot instead. And I like Shuri Joe. I like the Ryukyu Dragon guys. I'm not happy that they are in this tournament when we could have had young guys instead.
Yeah, no, and they're probably like, if anyone's going to go 0, it's going to be them.
Yes, I think that's a very safe assessment.
Block B, Big Hug. I feel like it's trying to find the exit ramp, and I feel like it's something where do you use the exit ramp to build up a Dreamgate match or a Bravegate match, basically.
Yeah, I think it's probably a Dreamgate match at some point, but I see them as a semifinals team and maybe even a finals team. It's again, there's no shot of them winning, but I also think they will go very far and do very well in this tournament.
Yeah, unless the Luis Mate knee angle goes out through the tournament. Like, I've just been guessing on that. I don't know what the status of his knee is. Don't take that as any sort of reporting. If that's not being in play, yeah, they will probably go to the finals and lose. I feel like that's a pretty clear thing.
Or the semis. I think they're going to go very far. I think they're going to do very well.
Yeah, another team where I would feel like that they're going to do pretty well, but you do have someone that gets beat a lot. D-Courage, Madoka, Kakuta, and Dragon Dia.
Fascinating stuff here because Kakuta won last year with Yoshioka. Now he's got Dia as his partner. I wonder if they play into that at all, where, if Dia underperforms, Kakuta's going to let him hear about it. Or maybe D-Courage is just really good and they go far again. I look at this as, again, not a team that could win, but a team that could go very far.
Former Twingate champion team, these two.
That's right.
So, like, that's like the fascinating thing about this team is it's like, oh yeah, no, this is how Kakuta joined the unit, and we're now trying to make sense of this former Twingate team in this tournament and how they should feel about this. I could see them being topping out at semifinals, but it's something where Dia is someone that they are more than willing to take. He can take a whole lot of falls and he'll be okay.
Yeah, he'll be okay.
KZ and UT are your second Natural Vibes team. I don't know about them. Like, it is something that they are such an established tag team, but it was something where it was a base around the Ryukyu Dragon belts, and they weren't really ever Twingate like contenders. I feel like, in a way, like it's something where this one is very low floor, waist high ceiling. I feel like.
I don't think they have any shot of going far. I also think they might end up being the best team in the entire tournament.
Yeah, no, like, if I'm thinking about it ring work wise, that is the case. I mean, we have to see some loose Yave case, from UT. I'm
pumped. I think they're going to crush it. I just don't think they're going to win a lot.
Yeah. Kung Fu Masters, Jason Lee, Jackie Funky Kamei. I feel like that this is a team that we would expect would be a little higher, but I can see them taking some losses. I don't think they get out of the block. No,
I don't either. The crazy thing is they're the only repeat team from last year.
Right. Yeah, that is true. They are the only repeat team.
That's mind-blowing to me because the tournament still feels very full and very strong, but they are the only repeat team. They just wrestled Kiyomi and Alejandro, so no, I think they're going to lose a lot, and I think they're also going to be awesome while doing it.
Yep, that's true. Susumu and Yamato, I kind of think that they are the favorites.
I do too. I think these are the favorites. I'm fascinated by this team. I want to see them team. I'm looking forward to it.
And then with the injury to Yoshiki Kato, Shun Skywalker will be teaming with Ishin.
They won't win because they're the Dragongate champions, but I could also see them in the finals.
Yep, and I think that there's a very easy way to set up some April title matches coming out of this. Like they have the other belts set on enough people. Like that B block, that you can really make an argument that a lot of people coming out of that block could have title matches.
Yeah, B block is great. I think the A block would be looked on much better if there was a different team in there than the Ryukyu Dragon team. But the B block is loaded. I mean, there's not a bad matchup in that entire thing. And I think, between Big Hug and D Courage and Yamato and Susumu and then Shun and Ishin, it's anybody's ball game between those four teams.
Absolutely. And it all kicks off tomorrow at Korakuen Hall. The tournament, at least through this week, they will have 2 more shows that we'll talk about next weekend on the program. They have a show in Hyogo, and they will be in Nagoya on Sunday. So we'll have 3 nights of Rey de Parejas to talk about next week. The finals will be April 10th, a Wednesday, in Korakuen Hall.
Mike, your ideal finals matchup, what do you want to see the most?
So, what I would want to see the most, I am really fascinated by the Susumu and Yamato team. I feel like that they are my winners, and I think it is something where you already have an exit ramp from Big Hug, so you don't have it being A block, B block there. I think there's a way that you could do. I feel like it might be Team Muscle losing to Susumu and Yamato. I've talked myself into that one, and Susumu and Yamato wins. I feel like that's the most likely one. The one I want to see, I want to see Z-Brats versus Z-Brats in the final. I feel like
I hadn't thought about that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, because there's no other way that this match could happen outside of the finals, I feel like.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's not a bad idea.
It completely salts and burns the tournament, but I feel like that'd be fun.
And then would you have Shun and Ishin or Kai and Valletta go over?
I think you have to do Shun and Ishin, and then Ishin's is going to take a Shining Wizard from Kiyomiya.
Interesting. I had not thought about that.
If you want to do the crazy, whacked out Galaxy Brain thing, because then Shun is right now kind of your guy who was in that Yamato role 5 years ago of being kind of the person of the company that's always like kind of front and center for promotional stuff. So I feel like that way you could send Shun over there.
I like that. If I had the pencil, it would be Doi and Dragon Kid over Shun and Ishin in the finals.
Okay.
I really feel strongly that Doi and Dragon Kid should win this tournament, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think realistically, it is Yamato and Susumu versus Strong Machine J and Big Boss Shimizu, with Yamato and Susumu going over and winning the tournament.
Yeah, I like that, because then you have the big disastrous fall for the Natural Vibes team. Makes sense.
I'm pumped. I think this tournament looks great, and I am very excited to review this Korakuen Hall show.
Yeah, this Korakuen Hall show, I'm really stoked to. I just think that this tournament last year was such a great sea change for the company, especially with the way that they treat their first half of the calendar year. That the fact that they're bringing it back here, and we only have one returning tag team, and it does in its way feel kind of wide open. And I'm going to be excited to go through this tournament over the next month with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And any other things you want to touch on before we got out of here? This weekend, I did want to touch on real quickly Mochizuki Jr.'s excursion. It's a 16 karat gold weekend. It will be in Oberhausen, the Ambition tournament he is in, as well as being the alternate 4-way for the 16 karat gold. I believe that I don't know if they still do live streaming for WXW, but I know that they have a YouTube account that they post.
I look forward to seeing whatever makes tape.
Yep, and British Kingdom Pro Wrestling I saw started up a YouTube account. So we haven't had a lot of a chance to kind of catch up and keep tabs on Mochizuki Jr. in his first month of excursion, but it does feel like at least going into March we'll have a little bit of that as well. Well, Case, anything else you want to touch on before we got out of here?
I got nothing else.
Well, that's going to do it this week for Open the Voice Gate. We'll be back with you next week talking about the first week of Rey de Parejas. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. Case is at _ in your case. I'm at Fujiheya. Thanks for listening to Open Voice Gate. We'll be back with you next week. Take care, everyone.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney. In every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.